2:30. Hey, it's 2:30. Let's get started. Thanks. All right, that does it. Everybody stand up. Come on, everybody stand up, stand up, stand up, stand up. Come on, let's do an afternoon stretch. That's right. Put your hands out. Oh, to the left, to the right, to the left. That's right. That's right. Come on, it's afternoon. All right, you can sit down. Holy smoke. I know. Because I was thinking exactly what you said. Hello, everybody. My name is John Mayer, and I'm the Executive Director of Cali, the Center for Computer Assisted Legal Instruction. I had no idea all of you would show up to this session. This was a very difficult PowerPoint or talk for me to prepare because I live this every day, and there's so many ideas on how I might present this. So I've tried to make it coherent, but I apologize if it isn't. What I'm looking for, though, is feedback or ideas or things from you more than because I already know all about what we're doing with Cali. But I want to know what you think we should be doing or how we might be doing something differently. I won't guarantee that I will change my mind or follow your advice, but I do believe that as a crowd, we're smarter than we are as individuals, and so there's a great benefit to having multiple people or other smart people look at what you're doing. All right. So I need to sort of like start from a baseline. So here's some familiar graphs that I show every year at ALS. That shows our membership. And the key thing I want to point out about these graphs is not how they climb into the heavens since John's been executive director, but how they've flattened out and how they're a plateau at this point. In this case, there aren't any more law schools we can go conquer, or they're not opening fast enough, right? And not likely to be in the near future. Number of lessons, a nice. I'll come back to that graph in a second. Number of lessons went up, but it's sort of slowed down on the number per year because the large number of lessons that we're carrying makes it harder to add more because we have to go backwards and make sure that these are maintained, updated, kept up to date, and so there's an expense to size, you might say. All right. Same with lesson usage, at least right now. We climbed a hill and then we've sort of plateaued out. I'm really glad that we plateaued out above 1 million, not right below it. But there seems to be a common theme of, we've accomplished a lot, but we're at a breathing spot in terms of some aspects of our growth. All right? And so, as you all well know, or maybe you didn't get the memo, we've raised dues for 2011, 2012, and the dues raise was going to be from $5,000 a year to $6,250 for 2011, 2012. But we announced a double dues raise that we would raise at $1,250 this year and then $1,250 again, so that in 2 years the dues would be $7,500 per year. So that's why I wanted to go back to this graph. And this is a graph I found of law school tuitions, and I stuck Cali's dues at the bottom. Can you email that to everybody? Well, statistics lie. You have to be careful with this, but it does show, though. There was a point where we were like equal to your tuition at an average public resident program. I found that fascinating, right? Back in the 80s. And that the growth, as you can see, is getting a little bit more steeper. And we've pretty much, we've kept pretty flat, and that's why there's this sort of incipient growth at the very end there, to sort of catch up in a lot of ways, right? We've been extremely, I believe, we've been extremely efficient in getting more value off the backs of my sweating staff, and now I want to obtain more slaves to work in the Cali mines. Hi, Sarah. Is this being recorded? Okay. So anyhow, so Cali is a constellation of projects, right? There's a lot going on here, and in order to make some sense of it strategically, I had to rent an airplane and fly up to 5,000 miles, or get in a satellite and look down upon it, and say there's a series of groups. And the first group is lessons. It's just it's the thing we're most well known for. And I put pure in there. You'll understand why when I go to the next slide. One of the funny things is that the lessons, or not funny, is they're more relevant than ever. They're based on a 1970s model from Stanford Research Institute called program learning, which is actually sort of based on operant conditioning. I think that's B.F. Skinner, right? Yeah, Skinner's work of much earlier. And I've seen in the literature them go out of favor and back into favor, and out of favor and come back into favor. And we've sort of plugged away, just taking that model and working it hard in different subject areas, and people appreciating it. So we're fine there. I don't see an upper limit. That's not true. There's the number of blood cells in Deb's bloodstream is the upper limit, but it's probably more like at 2,000 or 3,000, and then you're just repeating yourselves on lesson coverage. So we could keep doing this for a while. Some of the things that I would like that we are going to be doing, or that I'm focusing on in a strategic sense, are better delivery of institutional statistics. So you at your law school could come to our website and see how many lessons runs, which lessons are popular. Of course, these will be identity scrubbed, so you can't see which of your students are doing it, unless you're an instructor who's assigned this information, or assigned links to your students. Same thing with, I call this profiles. In other words, I want to be able to give that same information back to students so that I can give them, it's almost like I want to give them the Swiss cheese, right? They'll see the lessons they did, and then we can show them the lessons they haven't done, so they can say, oh, well, if you liked this lesson, then you should do this lesson, right? Amazon recommending engines and stuff. Is Elmer here? Yeah. We've been talking about this for ages. It's something that I really want to get focused on. What I call badges, credentialing, and assessment. We can do more on lessons where if you finish 10 torts lessons, you get the torts badge. If you finish 10 contracts lessons, you get the contracts badge. You finish 10 constitutional law lessons, that's magic because there's only 9 of them. No. You get the constitutional law badge, and if you finish, if you get all the badges, then we'll give you a degree from the Cali Law School. I joke about that, but there's a funny aspect to credentialing. Right? A badge is a credential, even if it's just a level up in a game, or you've spent X number of hours playing Minecraft or World of Warcraft or something like that. And the book that I've been recommending to people, I think I lost it. Yeah, I left it somewhere. Yeah, oh no, there it is. So the book I've been recommending to people is Reality is Broken by Jane McGonigal, in which she says, gamifying things or using game mechanics. She's not so kooky as to suggest that everything is a game, but that game mechanics has potentially some insights into how we design education or work or our daily activities as a way to find psychological methods of motivating people to do things. And badges are part of that. And leveling up is a form of credentialing, and unfortunately, or fortunately, it's a form of assessment. How well am I doing? Right? And even at the level of what scores students get on Cali lessons, we can do that with just some good sort of web-based programming. I'm not saying we're rushing headlong into this. I'm saying I want to explore this thing. And the last thing, which I consider different, I don't consider badges necessarily gamification. Gamification in social learning might be a situation where you can tweet that you're running a lesson, or you could set up a time for 2 people to run a lesson, and then they can sort of do walkthroughs, but virtual. They could see each other's screen, or they could compete like a lesson as a game show sort of thing. And that is a little bit more perhaps frivolous, but maybe it is a motivator for getting students to use educational materials more often because it has the social aspect. All right, the second sort of group is what I call lessons, but I call this the mutants group. And it's mutants because it's not the same as a Cali lesson. It's something that we can't fit into our rigid structure of automation that we've built with Cali Author in our lesson library. And that's and so it's going to require some special or new or different programming. Games, things that are mobile specific, which is to say geolocation specific or this small screen size. MCQ stands for multiple choice questions. Multiple choice question rotisserie is an idea where the instructor says to all the students in the class, I want you all to write one multiple choice question. So they all go to a website and they do. And then the system handles all of the mechanics of having another student evaluate, sort of in a rotisserie fashion, the Harvard system. So everybody gets to evaluate somebody else's multiple choice question. The ones that get thumbs up or the most thumbs up come back to the faculty member who just sort of looks them over, picks the top 10, and turns it around with one click of a button into a formative assessment back to everybody else. And because there's hardly any work being done by the faculty member, it might be something that they would be willing to do. And because the act of students writing excellent multiple choice questions, and because writing excellent multiple choice questions is an actual interesting intellectual activity, right? The ability to write a good question about something is the ability to learn it. You can't teach it until you've sort of understood it. And this is an idea I've been, if Jane Wynn were here, she was the one that I've had long conversations with. She's a board member from University of Washington. And she actually did this one semester, but with email and Excel, and it drove her crazy with all the administrative mechanics. And I'm like, if I could find a couple of weeks, we could program something like that would make that a little bit smoother, and we could begin to explore that idea. Because I've run across half a dozen ideas like that we just have never had time to explore. And it doesn't fit into any of our current models, so it's sort of what I would call a mutant model that I have to think about. Questions? All right. The other sort of big blob is e-course materials. And notice I didn't say casebooks. And that's because if you were at the last session, the idea of a casebook is exploding or disappearing or changing at least. Right? It's not just a book, it's actually a website. It's not a website, it's a website with links. It's also transmedia. That's the new word. You don't say multimedia, you say transmedia. So it's things like videos, it's things like podcasts and stuff like that. So we have a lot going on in this space, right? We have eLangdell, which is a formal press where we're paying authors for their intellectual property, turning around and giving it away. We have a website called the Legal Education Commons, where we say to authors, if you want to share your PowerPoints or your books or your chapters or your articles or your materials, here's a place where you can upload them. By the way, how's that going for us? Not real well. It's difficult to get the attention of faculty to share. I've had some conversations with, I won't name names, with a couple of faculty that were working on little sharing projects amongst their group of faculty. And I said, we've got a website that does everything you say. And they looked at it and said, orange? It's an orange website. I have to, if I bring it up. And I'll change the color. They didn't, it's not that they didn't like the color. They didn't want to play in my backyard. They wanted to have their own backyard and things like that. And that's a difficult problem to get over if people just want to, if people have a fixed idea about how it must be done and it can only be done that way, then you have to sort of work to convince them. I put Free Law Reporter on there because I see the original idea behind eLangdell was to start from a database of cases that would be filtered into a collection of edited cases that would be, have some commentary analysis added, and then you press a button and out comes all the formats you want: EPUB, PDF, RTF, HTML, whatever you want, device agnostic and things like that. And so I see us having to be in the open law movement just for our educational feed reasons. I don't even have to care that it's a tragedy that the law isn't free and it's difficult to get at, and all the very good democratic reasons that Carl and others talk about. I care that I can't get at cases to create open access or educational materials for myself. And I have Classcaster on there because Classcaster is essentially WordPress, and WordPress is this rich development environment. And I imagine that what I really want is not to create books or course materials, but conversations. And so I see all of these things feeding into content. Sorry, Sarah. Sorry, Mr. Revolver. That the content will flow into a blog or some kind of website that has a series of a set of features, things that will either email me or remind me through RSS or let me comment on them, stuff like that. And so that's why Classcaster is there under e-course materials. So this is a whole blob. Now the problem, strategically thinking, is I've got is I may have I don't know. I'm a little Mountain Dewed up right now. I may have sounded coherent in how I just described all that. How coherent was I in the last 3 minutes? I can't tell.
75%.
Wow, that's like way higher than I expected. All right, so I was 75% coherent. But in fact, your average law faculty or your average law school or other person who's like, who will bother to read an email or look at or take a suggestion from a law librarian and come to our website and poke around a bit, will see all this stuff and see all these crazy names and goofy cartoons and stuff like that and go, there's nothing here that looks like what I do. There isn't a lecture or a leather-covered cover, in the bunch. There is there, but it's got something stuck in it. And so this is a coherent-ish concept to me and to you who are already the converted, but to the majority of faculty, this is a mess. This is a confusing mess, and I don't have time for it. And so I've got to lower the barrier, or I've got to make the interface that they see much, much, much more inviting. Much more, and I think that's like a Steve Jobsian sort of task. You just have to remove the complexity until you're down to, it only does this, iPad or something like that. All right, so e-course materials, what else would I have in this? I don't want to do that one. All right. Yeah, I was slapping all sorts of slides in and deciding I wasn't going to use them. The next big blob is what I just would classify as A2J, which is, anybody not know what A2J is? Okay, give you since you're the only two, I'll just give you the 20-second precis. So it's a piece of software that we wrote that legal aid attorneys use to automate court forms for pro ses, people that represent themselves. It's being used an awful lot by legal aid. At least one law school, Columbia, is using it to teach a course, and no, two, Chicago, Kent. And we've got a grant to LSC to give money to 5 clinics so that they will teach A2J to some students who will partner with a local legal aid. We're essentially trying to recreate we're trying to use the same idea that launched the clinic movement in the 60s, CLEPR, Council on Legal Education and Professional responsibility. Where it's the same sort of model where Ford Foundation gave about $10 million, and over about a dozen years, law schools went from 0 clinics to over 100 or something like that. It's an amazing success story. And so we've got a grant application that we're part of with LSC to make this software available to law schools. It already is available, but to throw money at clinics that will then solve a really hard problem. Insufficient representation for poor people, and at the same time, law students will pay tuition to learn about e-lawyering by automating forms for legal aid organizations. Right? That's the super short story of this, because you can go to I don't know where I've got a link on it. Anyhow, if we get the grant, I'll talk a lot more about it. The point about, the cool thing about this is a piece of software that we got a grant to write a few years back, and it was sort of off in the, was a little bit off in the weeds, Cali-wise. You know, the the legal education couldn't make much use of it. And now with that grant, I can pull it all the way back in and tie up in a nice package, legal aid, legal education, law practice, and e-lawyering. We did a presentation about it at New York Law School at the Future of Legal Ed back in April. And the setup was, there was 10 presentations, and everybody in the audience had a fake $1 million to vote, you know, which one they liked the best, and we got $10.5 million, which was the highest. We were the winners of the best presentation at that thing. So that's really compelling to me. I love the fact that we're doing legal education not just at the law school level, but also at the law practice level, and also at the pro se level, indirectly through this product. All right, FLR is a question mark there, because open access to the law is a pro se issue, people representing themselves, and it is a legal aid issue because they can't afford to buy Lexis and Westlaw, and sometimes not even Fast Case. And so I wonder whether we're going to be stumbling, or whether it's a good idea to be stumbling into the delivery of legal research databases. You know, we got 1 million cases, right, Elmer? We will have 1 million cases. So, but that's opening up an ocean of worms, isn't it? Right? All right. Another big thing that we're working on is outreach. That's cartoon Austin there. One of the reasons why I needed a dues increase was we spend almost nothing on marketing, almost nothing. Right? It costs a lot to send out brochures. It costs a lot to buy TV time. It costs a lot to be on XM Sirius Radio, none of which we do, of course. No, that's not true. We send out brochures. I remember the year we decided to stop sending brochures from the conference to every faculty member in the country because they cost $8,000 to do or something like that. You know, and that was the year that the number of faculty coming to the conference started to decrease. But I don't think it was because of the brochures. I think that they started to lose interest in technology. Anyhow, we need to spend more money for outreach. And it probably means travel to visit places and whatever else will work. But it's time now that I've had way too many conversations where people said, I didn't know you were doing that, I didn't know you were doing that, I didn't know you were doing that. I've had conversations at this conference in the last 2 days with people I know very well who didn't know we were doing things that I've been talking about for 2 years. And I'm like, how did you not know about this? And so it's a noisy environment, and we're not making enough noise to be heard above it. And that's where some of our dues increase money will go. So strategic thinking there. And then there's like everything else that sort of, that some of them would fit in those other categories, but sort of don't. So, you know, MediaNotes, a great piece of software that we want to continue to support. It's not really in a course material thing. It's not really a lesson thing. The Cali Awards, which schools seem to love us. We added 10 more schools this year. We did over 25,000 awards. I constantly am contacted by students because the school has misspelled their last name on their award. Instapoll, which is, there's other better tools out there now. Lawdibles, which was sort of a little project to do 10-minute podcasts, and the webinars that we're doing, including law tech conversations. If you didn't get a chance to hear David Dickens' interview with Richard right after the plenary, I recommend that you do when it comes up. It was a fantastic conversation to sit in on. This is the scary slide, right? You know, and then there's like our infinite back burner projects that we've done some or little work on, but I'm like, you know, they're bridges too far when when, when 3:30 rolls around and it's time for me to take my nap and have my cookies and stuff like that. I'm convinced some kind of simulation management system would be a cool idea to build. Maharg's Simple didn't quite cut it for us. They're working on a 2.0 version. Maybe that will work, but we'll have to wait and see. Paul Maharg from University of Strathclyde, now in Northumbria. Educated a Digital Lawyer is the name of a book being published by Lexis this fall. And all of the authors, I was at Columbia in April, and all of the authors have written, there's like a whole bunch of people who have written a different chapter. And they were like brainstorming, well, how do we get word out about this? And I said, you teach a class once a week. An author gives a 15-minute talk, and you talk about what's in your chapter. And they all looked at me like, wow, that's a great idea. Will Cali help? And I'm like, maybe. But it got me thinking that, maybe Cali should get in the sort of the seminar-ish teaching business. In other words, we'll get people who teach things that are not strictly law school level stuff at a sort of a CLE for law students kind of level. All right, I'm losing coherency here, but that's because this idea, I'm still trying to like develop it. Anyhow, the 12 authors of those chapters were like, gung ho, and Lexis is going to give the book away as an ebook. All right. DPLLA/FLR/Open Law. Do you all know what the Digital Public Library of America is? How many people have heard of that? About a third of you, yeah. I just realized I can't describe it in the amount of time left in the universe. It's too hard to describe. It's a Harvard Berkman Center effort to create a digital public library of America, and they recently asked for ideas. I was going to blow it off, and then I learned that they have the ear of some big-time funders, and so I thought, well, put something into the pool. I can always withdraw it later. And so I suggested the DPLLA, the Digital Public Law Library of America, which is essentially taking FLR and dropping it into a wiki and calling it Wikipedia of the Law or Google Maps of the Law. I don't know. I did it in under 400 words. It was reasonably coherent at 3 o'clock in the morning. But I've had people come back who've read the proposal and say, this is a great idea, and I'm with you and all that. And I'm like, oh, great, I don't have time for that. Or no, I do have time, because it might be the next logical step for what we're doing with FLR, or what we can do if we can convince Carl to keep on publishing cases, or we can do that digital database of the law idea that I was just talking about. Social games for law schools. When I was reading his book and playing around with the social game, my thought was, maybe we could develop some very simple web-based tools that make it easy for law schools to do social games with their students. And it's not a programming, it's not a technical problem usually. It's an imagination problem. The games are relatively simple that she describes, but they require custom-built tools, and so I'd love to explore that. Because of our work with A2J, we got a free copy of Hot Docs. I met Richard Granite when I was at the Future of Legal Ed, and he said, "You want to use Rapid Docs for Cali? You can have a free copy for that." It's a server-based tool. Neota is a logic engine. Too complicated to describe, but it's been offered for free. About once a month I get a call from a vendor, and not all of them have loopy ideas. Some of them have interesting stuff that they want to either give away because they're abandoning it, or they want to use our marketing power because we're exposed to 200 law schools. I always have to evaluate those ideas on whether I can do something really good with them. Oye is Jerry Goldman's audio of the Supreme Court. He's moved from Northwestern to Chicago-Kent, so he's got an office a floor away from me. And about once a month, we cross each other and say, we got to work together on something. And it's been 6 months, so it's getting a little frustrating that we've never sat down and done something. But I got to find the educational angle there. So in order to get all this done, these 6 people have decided to adopt a puppy. No, to adopt Sarah. And the second dues increase is intended to hire somebody else who can help on the technical side, because my 2 most overworked employees are Deb and Elmer, and that's where I need sort of more engine speed, more gasoline to throw on this conflagration that I call Cali. We worked with zillions and zillions and zillions of people, and this is an expensive. Everything that Richard was saying about dealing with, actually, it was in the conversation we were talking about. Publishers are a little bit like parents. Yeah, and I thought, well, only the good ones. Right? The bad ones would be like, helicopter parents or a band, parents that, drop their kids off and never see them. I think we're good parents. I encourage all my staff to deal directly with you or with faculty or with whatever as human beings, not to do the whole sort of talk to John and then I'll filter everything. There aren't enough hours or minutes in the day. And besides, what we do is real human stuff. It's working people on new ideas, working with people on change, working with people on their creativity. And so as a result, we are as powerful as our connections and as our social network. I guess we invented this idea, didn't we? So that's my sort of like, wow, good, 30 minutes. So that's my sort of all the things that I'm thinking about and working about in an attempt to put them into buckets. I'd love to hear your reactions to these and open this up to a conversation about whatever you want. Gee, I wish Cali would do more of this. Why the hell are you doing that? Stop doing this. Please do more of that. I'm risking a lot by saying those things, but I've got Mountain Dew. Don't forget to press the button.
Every year it's so motivational to come here and hear about all these exciting things, but like 2 years ago, y'all were talking about that lesson authors would be able to get statistics themselves online, and that didn't come through, and I'm still asking Deb when I need to prove to my dean that this is worthwhile. So I'm just wondering, you all hired new staff, can y'all tap into the rest of us? Could you crowdsource some of this stuff? I'd be glad to give up, a day or 2 a month to help out with whatever projects that I'd be able to help with Cali, and I'm sure folks at other law schools, would be able to do bits and pieces of stuff. I don't know. I'm not sure, the skills that would be behind this, but yeah.
That's an intriguing idea, a volunteer corps sort of thing. Sometimes coordinating volunteers is more expensive than doing it yourself, but that's not a bad idea. Yeah. Just a slight defense. Whenever people do request statistics, we do get it back to them, but it's a quick internal manual process instead of an automatic online process. And one's at this level and the other's at this level, and that's why it's taken a bit longer. But good idea, a volunteer corps. I kind of like that.
How many people we have this meeting? How many people?
Here, 275.
275 this year.
Yeah.
So if each of us gave up one day a month to help out with something, come on.
Well, thank you all. That's wonderful.
I'm also excited. My new dean, is she still on the board? Maria Lopez, my new dean's on the
yeah, she's on the editorial board,
yeah.
And she's revised some lessons. I'm really excited that Maria's going to school too.
Yeah, so I'm excited. I can go home and say, here's what we did at the Cali conference, because finally we have a dean who knows what Cali does, hopefully. And
excellent.
And I would hope there are other folks around here.
Well, we've had this idea that in order to develop the free law reporter, the primary case law is just the beginning. It needs a lot of secondary metadata added, like head notes, like citation checking, like other things. And the one way to do that would be to essentially develop a mechanical Turk-like interface, and then ask law librarians, who are the most qualified and capable of doing it, to be able to come in and to structure it so that you can do a little bit of work, get badges, and or 200 hours a month. If we make it as exciting as World of Warcraft,
and earn credits towards the fees to come to the conference.
That's one way to motivate people, or or Angry Birds or things like that. I don't know, but that's a good idea.
Can I add to that, John?
Yes.
You say we need a volunteer crew, and we kind of have that in place with the reps, right? I mean, everybody. Yeah. Each school has a rep. So, are you your rep? No. So, get on board. And and whenever I send out emails to them, I expect they should be kind of pushing them along. I mean, that would help out a great deal if people would just take what they see on Twitter, Facebook, on the blog, and stuff like that, and just pass that along to the people who it applies to. So that would be helpful.
We should probably change who our rep is then.
If you want to, just send me an email. Thanks.
Somebody's got to have something on their wish list. Second Life. No. Well, that's a blast from the past. I want that ring. Don't forget to press the little button.
I did a workshop for our faculty this year on using Cali Author to make your own little mini Cali lessons. And the problem is that Cali Author is kind of cumbersome to use, and I wonder if you've thought about making it easier, so it'd be a lot easier to just throw together a little Cali lesson.
Throw together a lesson.
Something.
No, the answer is to create an authoring system not for lessons, but for little quizzes or something like that. Yes, we have been thinking about that, as well as upgrading the authoring system to a web-based authoring system. Because now that the lessons are going to be HTML, JavaScript, why not also the authoring system as well? So yes, great idea. Gary?
I know I've talked with you about this before, and I guess I'm going to bring it up now. Have you looked into any assessment, like e-portfolio tools?
I've heard the rumblings in the distance on that stuff, especially from the Brits. Right? They're all over e-portfolios at UKCLE and by Lida, but I haven't looked at it very much because I just haven't had the time. What do you think about? What's your opinion on that?
Well, the key, and I put this on TechNoids. It's a two-pronged issue. One is that we do a lot of skills courses where faculty want to be able to assess, like video, and annotate video and do that. But it's even more than that. It's having students being able to upload documents, case briefs, whatever, get critique on that. But then if someone does really well, a student does really well in a video, to be able to take that video, put it in a public folder. And one of the most difficult things, and that's what I'm hearing across the board at Cali right now at this conference, is the job market being so bad for our students who are graduating, our recent alums. And if we had a way of being able to have some kind of unique thing, let's say a portfolio that our students could show to prospective employers. So it'd be a two-pronged, tool.
Mm-hmm.
One for class assessment, and then taking some of that material and giving a student a chance to have a public portfolio. And that's what I'm kind of really looking at.
What's in an e-portfolio that's not in LinkedIn?
Well, you don't have like, say, a video. So you could actually see, a prospective employer could see you doing a mediation with a, like a mock client, and you could actually see the skills that the student has. I mean, you can look through a resume, but if you don't actually see that student actually in action, that might give a leg up on someone else.
Uh-huh. And who would the schools want to? How do I ask this? Would the schools want to own, not own the information, but own the container, because these students are the school's alumni or soon-to-be alumni, or would you think that this would work as a national thing or something like that?
I'm not certain. I think that maybe a consortium, not to throw you'd throw darts at me or Angry Birds. If Cali did something like that, might be something of use.
Okay.
I mean, let's face it. I think something like that would not be cheap, but if the group of schools went in on it.
Well, Tom, would that work better as like a directory thing, like Justia or something like that? Is Justia's directory free? Yeah. All right. See, I hate building something that somebody else has built or that's already
Well,
closed.
if I could chime in, we have a nationally known design, art, and architecture school at UC, and they have yet to figure out which of the commercially available portfolio products meets their needs.
Yeah.
I've had the same issue. I've looked at TaskStream, which is, ugh.
And so,
I've
and
looked
so,
at some
we-
open
and so you're
source
going to ask us to build something from scratch to compete with that?
Look,
No.
It's maybe it's pie in the sky, but that's something I think right now where those are two needs, I think, of a lot
No,
of
no, I
schools.
appreciate that. I didn't mean to jump on you. Yeah.
No,
Press the button, please.
Social media we're way out of proportion to what you would think given the job market right now. And I don't know what it is. I don't know if they've had it scared out of them by placement people who tell them not to have it run pictures on Facebook or what the deal is. But that's been the experience. There's just not the take out there that you would expect.
So a safe social media space for job-related or work-related materials.
Maybe. I mean, we've fooled around with this idea off and on. I mean, I've known of it being fooled around with since about 1994. And placement people get upset about it. I mean, in the early days, right, people talk about things like resume banks. And
Right.
the problem was that nobody could figure out how to implement them without putting search systems in place that the students would consider inherently preferential. And if you think about it, the utility to the employers is entirely accounting to be preferential. Right? So, you know, if you throw something like that out there and say, well, you can search on GPA, and they're not going to love that. So there's a hill to climb there for sure.
Yeah. And then if you don't provide that functionality, somebody will add it on.
All have
Yeah. Yeah.
you know.
Well, you know, Avo walked our entire Cali Awards, the public part of it, and stuck them in there. You know what Avo is? It's like a big lawyer. What do you call it?
It's a dubiously constructed lawyer rating service.
Yeah, that's it. That's it. I see somebody else's hand up. Use the button.
The electronic portfolio system is in use at a number of undergrad institutions. I mean, they have those people, the minute they get in there, constructing this multimedia, transmedia portfolio. I'm just wondering if there's been any discussion with these people, say like career services people and folks like that at some of those undergrad institutions that are using those, because they may know some of the pitfalls, some of the good parts.
Oh, I'm sure. But law schools are completely different from any other schools.
I know that
And so therefore, they must use a completely different piece of software. No, that's a good idea. There's obviously others have met and solved or dealt with this problem.
Well, and there are some vendor products, and there are some that have been created by the undergrad institutions themselves. I saw several of these at EduClass about a year and a half ago. So, I mean, there's stuff out there that we could learn from if you are going to construct another one.
Purdue is building something based off Mixable. So I've actually had discussions with them.
I saw a few people wince when I said something about Cali credentialing. I'm surprised it didn't scare you guys a little bit more there. It was intended as a grenade, a little bit. But the idea that people would take lessons and get little badges, and then that might lead to something like what if Cali started giving certificates to people for the number of if they completed a number of lessons at a 90% or higher level.
Well, John, in the current climate, there would be those who would claim that it is no less meaningful than ABA graduation.
No, I expected you to go the other way and say.
Well, he did say there are some.
All I could think of when you said badges,
Well, no, I mean, I've been reading a lot of literature, whatever I could find, blog-level literature on this, and philosophically, when you start credentialing, no, philosophically, almost all credentialing systems started out as inventing something out of thin air. It's not like there was some, or from God, said, you shall credential, and I always thought, as an engineer, there had to be some spark or something like that. And I realized, well, if we can, if all credentialing systems were created out of thin air, let's create something out of thin air and see, but never to try to presume too much, but just to say, this certificate represents that this person has done 25 Cali lessons and gotten 90% or higher score on them. It's factual in that regard, and so they are a Cali. I don't know, we got to come up with a Cali expert, warrior, marksman. I don't know, come up with like all sorts of things.
Are the firms going to care about this? Are we going to market this to the firms?
I don't know. I mean,
I should care. We need to know
who would value this.
But the firms are going to care about this more than like the degrees and certificates that students get already.
Not more, but in tough job markets, people are looking for differentiators, and this is at least we're not selling them a phony, or at least making them buy a differentiator. Instead we're giving them, and it's education based. I don't know. It was just a crazy thought. In the back.
Well, one of the things that we run into that's a problem is they can take the lessons 2 or 3 different times, and how are you going to be able to, you're going to have to put some quality control so that when they start it.
Not at all. Taking the lessons 2 or 3 times is a good thing.
Yeah, but if you're saying they've taken this and they've gotten a 94%.
That means it took them 3 times to get a 94. They've learned, though, but isn't that a benefit?
Give them the answers when they go through the first time.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Well, if you're going to be that way about it.
But
no, you're right. You're right. There are problems with the idea. This isn't an LSAT, right?
But the Cali Big Brother that you talked about earlier tracks everybody, right? Right? So you know when they've been online running through it that first time. That's why I didn't ask earlier. But
you can create an account and then use a different account or something like that. There's all sorts of workarounds. I never want to promise to somebody that we can give secure exams on the web. That's an oxymoron. Secure exams on the web. I don't believe it could be done.
I do think one of your crazy ideas from an earlier session works about having teams from schools and giving school-wide stats.
Oh, there we go.
When I went to Alabama, and we knew there was a school up the road at Samford in Birmingham, and there's a rivalry there. All these southern schools have state rivalries, and at Loyola New Orleans, where we know Tulane's across the street, I think the students would be in to be able to see how many lessons has this school done. And y'all could key those stats to a nice map, have little icons, red through green or blue or whatever, and see,
Right, you get the 1 star, 2 star, 3 star, the big
That's another project you can outsource to some people to, spend a day or two a month helping you program, since you don't have enough slaves at the office to help you with. So,
Tom?
John, you asked a provocative question, and I'll return a provocative question. Do we have any evidence that employers care about the Cali Awards?
We have a LinkedIn group for Cali Awards, and we have about 3,000 students who have signed up for that. So
that's evidence that students care.
Right. But it's evidence that they think employers might care or see it and care.
Any port in a storm.
Well, I actually have heard from lawyers in Chicago and elsewhere around the country that I know that they actually see it on the resume. And so it is, they equate it with the AmJuror.
Evidence is hard to come by.
There was a blog.
Anecdotes, yeah. I get emails from people saying they want, they lost their award, they want it reprinted so they can hang it in their office, or I mail it to them at mail offices. That doesn't mean much, I guess, but yeah.
There was a
problem with printing money is ultimately that people have to agree to trade with it, right? And
Right.
There was a blog post, I can't remember where, but we can look for it. 10 signs you're going to a TTT, third tier toilet law school. One of them was if your school gave Cali Awards, you're at a third-tier toilets.
Aw.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Cornell gives Cali
I
Awards.
know, I'm sure. But that was one they listed.
They employ me too. There's other evidence of that.
Austin, I want you to find that blog post, and Deb, I want you to get it taken down. Open access. Suzanne.
So are there any law schools that don't belong to Cali
Sure.
that we should be working on?
Sure. You want to work? Okay, Wisconsin.
Crowdsource that.
Wisconsin, I don't know the story there. Iowa. I got Arthur Bonfeld, who's been the head of the law. He's the head of the law library, but it's not. He's not a law librarian. He's a faculty. The head of the law library. I don't think they have a law library director. They have sort of a. Yeah. Northwestern, my alma mater. They joined. They dropped. They joined, and they dropped again recently. But Van Zandt has left. He was the dean that I was talking to. And so once their new dean comes in, we'll be working on them. I don't know. Most of the schools, is that it? 3?
Can't think of any.
Yeah. I think those are the only 3, seriously. So the rare conversations I can get with schools that aren't members, it's mostly they have no idea what we're doing. And so we've tried papering them with brochures, which doesn't work, offering to speak, even to buy lunch for the faculty, which doesn't work. You know what I mean? It's mostly.
But if there was like a big list somewhere, and we could like make fun of them because they don't know, shame them into joining. Think of that.
This is being recorded, and I wouldn't be allowed to do such heinous tactics.
But what were those schools again? No.
Are there students running lessons? No.
That's just it. Can we
We need
talk?
to advertise in the pre-law publications to create the built-up student demand at those institutions when they get there.
Yeah. I think I would open it to students for a month at exam time, and then shut it down. Yeah.
That's a good idea.
Yeah, anybody with the institution's email address.
John, when the dues increase was announced, of course, since money is tight everywhere, we did a poll of our students and said, here's our consideration. And the feedback was overwhelmingly, don't you dare. Don't you dare.
All right.
Thank you, New Mexico.
I'm sure I could get the statistics on this, but the number one email question I get year after year, without fail, no matter how many times I give them notes, what is the Cali registration code? That has always been my number one question with students year after year. So I know how heavily they're used.
Cool. That's wonderful to hear. And that's probably where I should wrap this up. Thank you very much. If you have ideas or suggestions beyond this, send me an email. Love to hear it.